Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to another live stream. And as you can see, I'm joined tonight with, I'm delighted to be joined by my friend David Sedgwick, author, bon viveur, and all-round good egg. So first of all, a warm welcome to you, David.
Oh, good evening, David. Nice to be here again.
So folks, so it's a normal routine. So depending which platform you're watching this on, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Periscope, if you're on Periscope, hit the hearts buttons, and I'm going to be watching, so I'll know at the end of this who obeyed and who. Because remember, we live in an age where you must obey. So hit the hearts buttons if you like what we're saying. If you don't, hit it anyway. Basically, we'll have a good conversation for the next 45 minutes. It's a little bit shorter as I've got to go somewhere later on. But anyway, what we're going to chat about tonight is, I guess it's the single biggest topic, David, of the moment, which is the news that we are to be apparently a muzzled nation, thanks to our wonderful conservative leader, in quotation marks, Boris Johnson. So we're going to chat about that. And then I want to chat, folks, about also the BLM statue. They're putting up statues to themselves, which is usually what happens in a war when the victors have actually won. So we're going to chat about that, a little bit about those two things as well. So I hope that's okay for you all, folks. We can see your comments. I don't know, David, can you see the comments just going down the side of the screen?
There aren't any yet, though, are there? I don't think.
There's loads. There are loads.
Like, in that case, I can't see them.
In that case, you can. That's okay. I will put up the best of the comments, and we're going to be joined in Hi Gainer. We're going to be joined in a little bit by one of our regulars, the stalwarts, Jed, who's joining us. And by the way, just again before we kick off, if any of you folks would like to come on the stream and just chat with me at any point, just let me know the day before or whatever, if that's something you'd like to do, because the name of this game is to have a civilized, informed conversation. That's the purpose, and that's the be-all and end-all of all I want to do, have civilized conversations on topics that really matter. So the topic, David, that really matters is masks. Apparently, you know, it only seems like yesterday to me, David. I remember back in the end of March or mid-March when we were told, look, we're going to be locked. We have to have a lockdown, folks. I'm sorry, we have to have one, but it's only going to last for 3 weeks, and that's going to be fine, isn't it? And now here we are, all those months later, and apparently, as the lockdown eases, we need to become a masked society. What's your thoughts?
I think a lot of people were warning. I think I was warning about this back in March, saying, and I wasn't the only person saying, well, okay, do you think this is really going to last for 3 weeks? Once governments, history shows, once governments grant themselves these kind of draconian powers, they hardly ever scale them back. Or if they do, it's under duress, and it takes much, much longer to retain liberties that they've taken away than it does to grant themselves those powers. And they hardly ever roll them back. And actually, in the last couple of days, I've heard people saying, oh, wear a damn mask. I think there's a Twitter hashtag, wear a damn mask. Yep. It's only 20 minutes to go into a shop or to do your shopping. But even today, I've heard rumours about the government talking about actually introducing them into offices and places of work already. So this is nonsense, thinking this is going to be just 20 minutes. And again, there's no time scale. Have you heard about a time scale? When's it going to end? When's the end point of this face mask, nappy masks, or whatever they're called? Face
nappies, yeah. Oh, it's so disrespectful for those who fear for their very lives. Here's the thing, folks, on this one. Like, David, to answer your question, I have heard a time scale because Deputy Head Prefect Matt Hancock did suggest, or at least the Daily Mirror said it, so that's probably lies. But anyway, we might have to be in masks until next summer. So, you know, that was, I know you can, you know, take that for what it's worth. But yeah, so they're not even pretending this is for a couple of weeks, are they? This is, and David, you make a great point, and I've heard you make it before, folks. You need to really understand the point David made, and it's the thing he said. When governments do things like this, they don't undo them. It's one-way traffic. It's erosion. It's like, people forget, David, that income tax as we ordinarily understand it, it hasn't been around forever. It's only been around for less than about 100 years. So, governments do these things and then they keep these things. But, for me, and here's a question for you. I mean, the thing is that you can see how some people have instantly rushed to embrace this. I presume they were the same people who rushed to embrace lockdown. And their arguments are, it's only 20 minutes. If it saves one life. And you can see, it's amazing. Hi, Angela, by the way. Nice to see you. Maybe you'll come on the stream some night as well. So the useful fools, like they're legion, aren't they? They're everywhere.
Yeah, and they seem to be a certain type. I know we live in a very polarized world, especially since the EU referendum, but it's amazing how already Brexiteers are being smeared as mask deniers. And they've already, the media are always playing that one. They need to get to split people, of course. It should just be people who are into liberty and people who are against liberty. I don't care about left or right. It's not about left or right, although the media are trying to make that dichotomy, aren't they already? Yeah, I think it's just about, well, to me, it seems the same people who, paint EU masks on their faces and want further integration into the European superstate are the same people begging for, they're basically big statists, aren't they? They're people who need a big state. They're people who, to me, they seem, I don't know, psychologically, they seem to be driven by fear, paranoia, lack of independence, wanting to be taken care of. I mean, a lot of them, I don't know, I've already noticed, a lot of them seem to be Labour voters, and they seem to have these little roses on their Twitter profiles, little roses. And people who don't are going to be smeared as being selfish, aren't they? And we're going to be potential killers. I mean, I've been quite happy. I thought the situation was okay at the moment. I've been quite happy to watch these sad people with their masks jump out of my way when I walk past them in the street and hide around corners in the supermarket. And I've just breezed past them. And I thought, okay, fine, you're acting like that. You exist in your paranoia fantasy world, delusions, big statism, corporate media, and I'll go for the freedom option. And we can live together like that. But this compulsion, I think, has wrapped beyond this level, really, hasn't it?
But that's exactly the point. You see, and that's actually, David, that's the point of schism between the two groups in this country, because people like you and I suspect most of the people watching this and who follow us are kind of live and let live people. So we'll sort of say, well, look, I'm not scared of COVID. I'm not even interested in social distancing, but I respect that if that's something that you want to do, you stay behind your closed door and huddle behind your front door if you want, if you're so scared. If you want to go out and be paranoid about anyone coming within 2 meters, that's fine by me. It's okay. That's your choice. My choice, however, is that I won't huddle behind my front door and I will go where I want. But now they want to take that from us, don't they? Because they're you can see it already. It's just not courteous if you won't mask up. So
yes, but also, David, I'm just thinking what's going to happen soon is that libertarians and people who appreciate where this is going and want to prevent this from happening and are desperate to cling on to what we've got now, we are going to be coerced and pressured. I mean, I'm just imagining going into the supermarket next time I go. I can imagine with the majority now complying, because don't forget, they've said you could be fined £100 and the police could possibly arrest you, although I don't know how that's going to work. Imagine looking at people on the street who haven't worn a mask in a supermarket. They're going to be arresting everybody, aren't they? But what I'm worried about, though, is that social coercive pressure. And the media are going to play that up. And they're going to say, do you know someone who isn't wearing a mask? That's a potential killer. That's what they're going to smear people as. You are potential killers. You're killing innocents. You selfish Brexiteers, of course, you're going to go around potentially killing people. And you think, well, for the last 12 weeks, we haven't been killing anyone. Have you not seen the statistics, you idiots? That's the other thing about these people, David. They are getting their information solely from the MSM. And they're not aware of the larger picture. I don't even think they know what the statistics are. I think they are genuinely in the midst of the bubonic plague still. I don't think they're taking any information other than what they're fed by the Remain heavy MSM BBC cabal.
No, that's right. I mean, the thing about it is that, and again, one of the huge ironies in this is we've been told by government from beginning of all of this, late February, March, follow the science, follow the science. And the science clearly stated, and we've seen it from the Deputy Chief Medical Officer in England and right across the spectrum, David, lots of these, the scientists saying that masks had negligible, if indeed any benefit. So at what point did the science change? You know, at what point did suddenly these face masks, which they knew and they know damn well are useless, even the N95, you know, the medical grade ones are also, from studies I've seen, almost useless. At what point did the science change? And isn't the answer it didn't? It's just the politicians and the government has changed.
Yeah, very worrying that science. This is Orwellian, isn't it? This is when you can actually change the past to make it match up with what you want in the present. I mean, they're politicizing science. I mean, that's been a very, very, very worrying trend, I think, for a number of years now. But you're quite right. I mean, I've been reading about the actual detrimental effects of cloth masks and the N95 one. The way they can cause headaches, that they can cause hypoxia, which is the lack of oxygenation in the blood, which can lead to people passing out. I think there was a case in America where a guy's driving his car. I mean, I've seen people in the UK wearing masks in their cars. And there was a guy in America who's wearing a mask, passed out, crashed. I mean, this is dangerous. I mean, what they're doing, David, is actually creating, and some epidemiologists have been saying that when you start inhaling your own carbon dioxide, you increase the viral load. If you've got it, you increase the viral load anyway. So, and you'll be suffering, who knows, cardiovascular issues. And I say hypoxia is quite an issue as well. And also headaches. It's dangerous.
Yeah, well, you can see, David, one of the people on the stream here, a lady from Scotland, June Smith, she's saying that, you know, it's been a week since obviously since the dictator Sturgeon brought it in Scotland, and she's saying a young girl in a shop saying her mouth's covered in spots. And I mean, that's June. That is just the beginning. I'm aware of other people, David, who have, for work reasons, be required to wear masks. They're coming home with splitting headaches, you know, migraines, not well people. And that's only after like a couple of weeks. So what is it going to be like after 6 months, 12 months? Well, what exactly is this government going to do for collective health?
Well, some of the more cynical might suggest that that's exactly what they do want to, because perhaps the death rate was not quite as dramatic as they had hoped or planned. And this is one way of increasing it. Because I mean, I think the death rate in the UK peaked somewhere in mid-April. And I think since mid-April, it's been going gradually down. As you'd expect in every single classic epidemiology, it's following that upside-down U shape, and it's now receding. So the logic of putting this, making us mask up right at the very, very tail end, you can only just be suspicious about it. I can't understand what they're saying it's to prevent a possible second wave, but there's been no, as far as I know, no suggestion that the second wave is imminent, although the media wants a second wave. The BBC are absolutely ecstatic at the moment, aren't they? They're absolutely enjoying it. They in fact, I think this was driven by the media. I think Boris Johnson is such a weak leader that I'm pretty sure that he takes his orders from Conservative Central Office in conjunction with the BBC and on the London dinner set party circuit, effectively. And it's to curry favour with those people. I mean, have you noticed recently, I'd say the last week, BBC have laid off Boris Johnson for the first time in months. They've actually laid off him. Why? Because he's doing what they want. Yeah, he's on top now. He's doing what the BBC want him to do.
Well, throughout this whole COVID scenario, David, and I know we've touched on it in other discussions we've had on the media, I think this government, the Johnson administration, is completely enthralled to trying to get on the right side of the media, as if the media could ever be your friend, which they can't. They're absolutely not. And you're right. I mean, the media are desperate for a second wave, and yet you have these slight awkward moments. Like, for example, we've seen yesterday, where I think it was Leicester had to have a partial lockdown, and then we've seen a spike in Blackburn, which is euphemistically described as being in the South Asian community. South Asian. maybe a bit more specific we could maybe get. But so I mean, you know, but also, I don't know if you saw, I mean, folks, I don't know if you've seen this, the other side of the pond in the States, another interesting one, David, where the media is so distrustful. The big spike in Florida. Florida, it's rocketing. Turns out that the labs that were doing the testing for COVID were only reporting positive cases and ignoring all the the negative cases.
Yeah,
So
they had a...
I mean, and the media reported the spike, and the media here reported the spike, and they ignored that then when the actual all the full details.
Yes, and it was through the whole count. I think it was 35 districts reported almost a 100% positive rate, and the media, of course, straight away reported that. And I think it was pointed out to them, "I'm sorry, you haven't reported your negatives," and they were all pretending, "Oh, sorry, all 35 districts had forgotten."
Yeah,
Bizarre,
I mean, as Catalytical says, a papaya fruit tested COVID positive. I did say that actually. Yeah, I think I was in some African country where they were. I'm not sure why they were running tests on fruits and whatnot, but they did test positive. But yeah, so I mean, we're gonna. I think it's inevitable that they're gonna get the majority of people to obey them because of the propaganda of the mainstream media, or one of our perennial enemies. They're going to do that. They're going to make people like you and me and all of us on the stream here, I think, be made feel as if we're enemies of the people. Classic.
Liars. Yeah.
But I mean, from everything I see this time Johnson, I think, has overstepped to a degree, insofar as I see lots of conservative-y type people. Members of his own party.
Cutting all the membership cards.
Yeah.
It's a futile jet. They'll come back. Listen, the Conservatives know who their voter base is, and they'll come back. They have these occasional strops, but they always come back to the fold in the end. You know, they haven't got the courage to go outside the fold. So that's a futile gesture. But I think I mean, I'm not a Boris Johnson fan. I'm not a Conservative voter, and I'm always criticising people for voting Tories and showing an incredible lack of imagination, because they always come back and screw them. I mean, just think about the immigration debate year after year after year, and yet they still keep coming back. When I would argue that the Conservative Party hasn't been Conservative since 1991, at least.
Yeah, but I mean, in this scenario, the fact is, though, that if just to say, by the way, just a message on the streamline here, little trolls on the streamline get blocked. So what happens, little trolls, is what's just happened to you there now. Bye-bye, little troll. And that's how it works. I don't tolerate this in my stream, okay? Go on, back to your bedrooms. It's probably past your bedtime. This is for the adults, I'm afraid. So not for you trolls. Bye-bye. So, yeah, but the thing is, so one of my big concerns about this whole scenario, and I'm sure you share, the UK economy is shot. Like, it really is shot. Shocking figures coming through because of the lockdown. And it's almost like just as we get to maybe a glimpse of something good, bang. And so, you know, I mean, and also madness stuff like, did you see, David, that the rule of wearing face masks doesn't apply if you go in to like a Starbucks or a Costa's or whatever for a carry-out. So if you go into one of their premises to take a carry-out coffee, you don't need to wear a mask. But if you sit in, presumably you do. Although I still don't. How do you have a coffee with a mask? That's going to be messy. I mean, where is the logic? It's like it's chaos.
Yeah, I mean, you could easily sneeze. You could walk into any cafe and just sneeze, couldn't you? I mean, the Tory government. I don't know who's advising them. Well, I know it's Chris Whitty, and who's linked to Fauci. Ultimately linked to Bill Gates. I mean, I think we know where this is going in the end, don't we? That this is going to be some sort of next summer. If you want, you know, they've stolen this year from the people of Britain. They've stolen it from us. And in order not to have next year stolen, you're going to have to submit to this vaccine. I mean, this is already been decided. A lot of money has been invested in research, and Bill Gates wants he's going to get $20 for every dollar spent. He boasts it's going to make him hundreds of billions of pounds. That's already been set in motion. These Conservative government are now scrambling around thinking, how can we keep this going? How can we tyrannize people until they crack and say, okay, because apparently 32% of the country are going to say no to this vaccine. I'm one of them, absolutely.
Oh, I'm 100% one. Yeah. Yeah.
So I
yeah.
think this face mask thing is to continue onwards, and then psychologically we'll be so desperate. This is the idea. I think we're going to be so desperate that we're going to submit to anything. I think by next year.
So it's like the sort of thing, David, that a torturer would do. You soften up your target, so you lock them down for 4 months, and and you change their way of life to start with. Yeah. Then you now say, right, you're going to have to mask up, and at that point along comes Mr. Gates' magic vaccine, no doubt with Imperial College, Oxford, and Cambridge. Making a few pounds profit in the back of it. And this is your way forward. And if you don't take the mask or the vax, that's your absolute choice, but it might mean you can't work. It'll mean you can't travel. You can't do anything in your life. But apart from that, your choice.
Yeah.
It seems like that's where we're heading, isn't it? Let's just put it on record, because I think
it does at the moment. Yeah, it does to me. And if you listen to some of the scientists who are being marginalized, they're talking about how that vaccine could potentially alter DNA and RNA in the body. So pretty serious stuff, turning you into almost some sort of robotic, which this big tech and Gates probably a fancy for them to control every aspect of your life potentially. But that's where, I don't know, maybe the Conservative government are going to surprise me, but I don't think so, because like I said, I've argued this quite often in the past. I don't think there is a Conservative government. I think you've got Conservative government is led by what I call the invisible government.
You're right.
It's a mixture of NGOs, mainstream media. That's what controls the Conservative government, not voters. They don't care about Conservative voters. I'm sure most Conservative voters are like us, probably, and don't want to wear a mask. I'm pretty sure. And if
here's a sad comment, David. Yeah. This is from one of my most regular people, Linda, who's going to her mum's funeral. Doctor said everyone should wear a mask. I mean, I'm sorry, Linda. There's a rich irony in that. I mean, like, it's a funeral. Do you know what I mean? I don't think that. Who else is going to die? Putting it bluntly, it's cruel, Linda. David, I find this offends me so much that people in her situation, burying her mother, has to imagine putting a mask. I would, no way would I do that. But then, of course, there is another aspect of this. This is regulations. It's not actually law. There's no law in this country that says you must wear a mask. There's a guidance and recommendations, and even what's being proposed in the shops suggests that you should. But you can't actually be compelled, and the police cannot arrest you, because it's not a criminal. It's a civic crime. It's not a sort of crimes that the police get involved in. So this whole thing stinks, doesn't it? From start to bottom, it's awful.
I think it's going to be a sort of self-censorship, a sort of social pressure. They've worked this out, the psychology. I've seen some documents where they've been advised, government advised, how do we get people to comply? And they're talking about social conditioning and the psychological element. That's what they're relying on. I don't think the police will be involved at all. I just think there's going to be so much pressure on. If you're the only person in a supermarket and you're getting dirty looks and tuts and sighs, and I saw a guy in America being chased around a supermarket by two women wearing a mask, hurling abuse at him. So that's quite successful. That's successful itself.
I agree.
That will work. Who wants to be hounded? Who wants to be hounded when you're buying a pint of milk and lettuce? We don't need it, do we?
I know. Well, at this point, then, let me add into the stream Jed, who's one of our regulars. Evening, Jed.
Good evening, both of you.
Hello.
Kick off with Jed. You've heard David and myself. I mean, we obviously absolutely oppose what's happening. But what about you? Will you be wearing a mask, or are you going to be chased around the supermarket by two fat mask-wearing ladies?
Well, I can tell you now, I will not be wearing a mask, and they can chase me all day long. It will not change my mind. This is social conditioning. This is leading, and I agree with David's point, this is leading to compulsory vaccination, because they will say that you're entitled not to take the vaccine but you will not have the pass to get a job. You will not have the pass to get in shops. But you can walk about the streets, but that's all you can do. And then the social pressure, like you said, and I've seen the videos on Twitter and on Parler, where people are being hounded because they're not wearing a mask. And that's what they'll try to do. They'll try to hound you into submission.
Yeah. Well, I think that, and I think they'll be pretty successful. I mean, for example, speaking for myself, guys, what I intend to do is I will avoid the high street like the veritable plague / pandemic. I just won't go unless I absolutely have to. And actually, I know I've shared this experience, but I'll just repeat it to you, David. Jed, you've probably heard me go on about this. I've only worn a mask once. I had to go to the Apple store to get an iPad repair. It was a necessary one-off. But they took my temperature, they scanned me, and they made me wear a mask. Now, I don't know about you, Jed, but David and myself are both glass-wearing individuals.
So am I.
Yeah, okay, all three of us then, and maybe on the stream as well. So I was only in the store for maybe 20 minutes, 25 max. And what happened to me, guys, was I felt awful. It was awful feeling, and my glasses steamed up.
Yes.
That was really uncomfortable. And honestly, I was never as happy to get out of the store. And I swore, and I have to put my hand up. I'm a big Apple tech fan. Maybe I shouldn't be, but I am. I love Apple technology. I will never go in an Apple store as long as I live. If they make me wear a mask, it ain't happening. No way.
Actually, David, I was going to say, when I've been doing DIY, you wear a face mask to do sanding and various tasks. I wear glasses. It's a horrible, horrible feeling. It's almost a claustrophobic feeling, especially when you've got your glasses steaming up, and you feel this thing over your face that's your breathing is affected. And we know the CO2 is coming back in. Breathing for half an hour, task DIY. It's a very, very uncomfortable, confining feeling. And I'm just wondering how people are going to do that for several hours at a go. I just couldn't do it. I can't bear it. But I don't think there's any get-out clause because you can't bear it. I mean, I think you have to have a medical exemption. Yeah. But there are people I just can't stand that restricted feeling, especially wearing glasses, like you said. It's not.
But you see, both Davids. Being ex-military, I've worn respirators for NBC, nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare, and even wearing them, the British Army do say that the task of fighting a war is over. It's about maintaining yourself in that situation, because although the respirators are full face, there is restrictions in your breathing. You are wearing a suit that protects you, and it does wear you down. You heat up, and just having a mask on your face makes your face heat up. Yes, I agree. You're breathing back in your own carbon dioxide, which gives you headaches and etc. But it is quite debilitating. To be in that sort of scenario. Now, to be in that scenario in the shop, I'm not going to do it. I've already worked out that everything I need to buy, I can buy online.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Amazon will do very well as a result of this. And almost actually, I mean, it sounds a conspiracy theory, but sometimes conspiracy theories are right. It's almost like the governments are conspiring to raise. I mean, they know the high street's on its knees anyway. It was back in January. And when I was chatting to Rebecca Butler on Monday night, I mean, her view was that what this is doing, it's fast tracking the death of the high street, but at a speed that I don't suspect any of us would have, anticipated. So if the likes of us guys and others, I mean, we do represent a percentage of the high street shoppers. If we don't go, then they're going to suffer all the more, aren't they?
Yeah, which you said the word conspiracy theory, but for these big tech giants, that would be a massive boon for them if the high street did die, and especially the corporations. I mean, I've long since suspected that one of the long-term plans might be to get rid of the small businessman, the backbone of the country. Is often said, England is a country of shopkeepers. Probably lots of other Western European nations are a country of shopkeepers. It's sort of part of our community and part of our life. And you can imagine a world bereft of. I mean, the high street's been dying for many years. Let's not make no doubt that. But like you said, this could be the final nail in the coffin, and that would, I think, completely change the way that we live and interact, because that's the high street has long been a sort of communal place for people to meet. And if this is an anti-humanist agenda, which is keeping people indoors, keeping people away and separated, once you've finally got rid of the high street, you're going to achieve that objective.
You're right though, David, because if you take each step that we've had, not just in this pandemic, but we've had the smoking ban, which stopped people going to the pub, having a few drinks. They meet with the neighbours and so forth, and they discuss the issues of the day and politics and stuff like that. Well, we've now weaned people away from that, so you don't get that. So the smokers go outside. They're not part of the conversation inside. So there's two groups now. So we've been split. We've now got lots of shops and supermarkets are no longer taking cash. Well, they wanted a cashless society, didn't they? And why did they want that? Because if your views are not acceptable, we can cut you off electronically. We can sever your life completely because you can't have access to your cash. And now we're going down the mass route and the vaccine route, because that's what will come next. And we've discussed that. That will come next. And this is what they want.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And actually, just one point before we move on from this topic. Back to the masks again. You touched on it there, and David as well, and we both mentioned this in different ways. But part of our humanity is that we see each other. I can see you, David. You can see me. Jed, well, we can see your icon, Jed.
I'm sorry.
but you know what I mean? So once you put masks on people, you can no longer, essentially, as someone put it on Twitter today, I thought it was quite a good line. It's like, women who wear masks, it's like burqa porn. I thought it was quite a good one-liner, actually. Sort of is, actually, because you're removing most of the ways that we can communicate, short of covering the eyes. You've covered up our humanity, and so I find it so strange that all these enthusiasts seem to have no problem about just going around masked up. To me, it's anti-human. I don't know what you guys think.
Well, you said earlier that it seems to be the Brexiteers that are against masks. Well, those that are for masks are those that wanted to remain. It's the same kind of people. We're still in our two camps of leave and remain. Yeah. Leave want, liberty and freedom, and remain want to be controlled and governed. Yeah. And I think that's where we're at the moment. We're still in those two camps in this country.
It still doesn't explain, though, does it, how these people can welcome in an anti-humanist agenda? I mean, I still think whether you voted Leave or Remain or Labour or Tory, I still don't understand how these people are walking into it and embracing it, and hurling abuse, very, very, very abusive. That people are saying, "Hold on, is this a good idea? Where does this lead to in the end?" That's what I don't get. I just don't understand why they're so enthusiastic about this. We're going to cover up. We're going to keep you away from people. The idea is to keep people away, communication, to keep that away, to separate. I just can't understand why these people are embracing it.
Because there are people that want the state to control them.
Yes, we said that before, didn't we? The big statists. It's an extreme form.
I think that's a good point, Ed. And actually, if you look at China as an example, look at the control the Chinese Communist Party has over everyone. They've got digital control. They've got financial control. The Chinese people are essentially subjugated to the government, which, of course, as we know, is a communist government. Which actually is my segue, nicely put in there, effortlessly, to the next point, guys, which I wanted to talk about. So I'm sure you saw. Let me see if I can. I'm just going to flick this up on the screen. Just hang on. Watch this. So here we go. The statue of the Black Lives Matter protester has gone up on the Colston plinth, and she was there. I don't know if you saw the video, giving her Black Power salute, and the BBC and others guys were drooling over it. They're so excited about this. So now we actually live in a country where a lawfully erected statue is thrown into the water, knocked down, and an illegal statue of those who did it is put up. David, let's start with you.
Yeah. Well, I've just heard, just before we started talking, that the mayor of Bristol has hinted that this is going to be a temporary, they're going to do something about that because they want the whole of the city to decide, quite rightly, whether that represents the city as a whole. What I thought was interesting about this was just the way that Channel 4, a state and funded also by the state and private advertisers, that was live. In the middle of the night, you had this quite complex operation which involved a crane, a dozen volunteers and associated vehicles, lights flashing, high-vis jackets, hard hats. I don't know how much it costs to hire a crane, an industrial-sized crane like that, but it costs a few quid. And Channel 4 were in on it. They were filming it, so they'd been tipped off to get to Bristol to film this. So they were effectively witnessing an act of, well, an illegal act. There was no planning permission.
Yeah, it was illegal. Yeah.
It was a bit like when CNN turned up at Roger Stone's house in the middle of the early morning when he was arrested in America there, that somehow this collusion between the media and these political groups goes on. And it's quite shocking to find Channel 4 then and tweeting about it tonight, like saying, wow, black power, end of slavery, Channel 4, a state broadcast that we basically all pay for and is supposed to represent the UK. And the way they were there at the scene. And the other thing, just who was funding that? I mean, the woman, Jen something, or I can't remember her surname, Jen Reed, I think her name is.
Jen Reed,
Her and husband were playing this typical, we just happened to be, we were going in Bristol one day to demonstrate, and then, it don't just all happened by chance. I happened to be wearing a Black Panther beret and gloves. Yeah. On the plinth. It's all casual, it's all totally spontaneous. It hadn't been planned at all. I'm not a political activist, although my husband was one of the gang of 12 who were rolling the Statue of Edward Colston into the heart, the dock in Bristol there. So, I just love the way that they all try to pretend that this is totally grassroots, totally spontaneous. It never is. It never is, and that's very disturbing. And the media play along with it. Instead of investigative journalism saying, hold on a minute, who are you, Jen Reed? Who's your husband? How did you get there? Who's funding you? How did this, we know that this artist got involved, Mark something or other, but he looks like he cost a pretty penny to commission the work by him. He's got a massive studio with cameras and all sorts. That operation to get that statue up there cost thousands and thousands of pounds. Where's investigative journalists? Why are they asking who's funding that? Where's it coming from?
Well, that's a good question. Jed, what did you make of that going up overnight?
It's absolutely bizarre that we've had an illegal act to pull down a statue that had been there for many, many years and thrown into the river, followed by another illegal act by putting up a it's a Black Panther statue. And I'm not saying that this should happen, but I will be happy to see somebody pull it down and throw it in the river. Which is exactly what they did with the statue that was there before. And the fact that Channel 4 are involved, that makes them party to a criminal act.
Yeah,
and they should pay the consequences of being party to a criminal act. That wasn't journalism, that was activism, and therefore it's a criminal act.
Okay, Jed, you've got a fan in the form of Stu, who is in agreement with you.
Thank you, Sue.
And of course, actually, Jed and David, you're both saying, I mean, the fact of the matter is that this was an illegal act. The statue has no business to be there. And although the mayor of Bristol has said it will come down, he hasn't said when it's going to come down. And, my view is that if it's not taken down by the weekend, Jed, I'd be surprised if it's still there, because I think people are the Bristolians, I think is the term for the people who live there. A lot of them are not very happy about the fact that the statue was brought down in the first place, and secondly, they stuck up a Black Power, a Black Lives Matter statue in its place. So, like you, I don't condone illegality, but I'm not sure if taking down an illegal statue is that illegal. Is that double negative? Is there such a thing as committing a crime for taking down something that's criminal?
I don't know, and that is the question. If something is illegal to start with, therefore, are you committing an illegal act by removing it? You'd have to have a lawyer on that, but the point is, nobody voted for it. It's not democratic. It should come down instantly, because the longer it's there, the more likely it will be to stay there.
Well, of course, as Mark points out, Bristol is very woke. And yeah, it is. I think it's a Labour-controlled council, isn't it?
What a surprise!
Oh, what a surprise! Yeah, but one of my points about this, which I made previously, is that I think in these situations where you see it's a broader picture than just Bristol. They've put this ludicrous statue on the plinth for Colston, but I don't know about you guys, but I think if they could, they would do exactly the same on the plinth of the Winston Churchill statue. They would do exactly the same on the plinth of the cenotaph, because my theory is that these people are revolutionaries. They're Marxist revolutionaries. They are out to completely bring down everything that we have. So it's not a cutesy pie little act that Channel 4 get excited about. It's much, for me anyway, it's a much more insidious evil than that.
Yeah,
David,
and that's why it's got to be dealt with. Someone's got to step up here and deal with this, because you're quite right. I mean, the Black Lives Matter organization, this is effectively the 1966 Black Power movement, which is a radical, extreme, violent insurgent group. That fist became very famous in the 1968 Mexico Olympics with the two athletes. It's more than just, it is symbolic, but it's symbolic of violence and insurrection. And you're quite right. If this one's allowed to see, this is the sort of precedent. We set precedents, don't we? That if they're allowed to get away with this, then this is going to spread. And if this spreads, you're going to get effectively what the BBC, Channel 4, and Sky want, which is effectively almost a full-scale race war starting up. And that's why the mainstream media are pushing this, of course, because what they want to see resistance. What they want is they want to get a white resistance to this, and then they can then say, look, we told you are white supremacist. You see, we've been telling you about all these white supremacists for decades, and you've never seen any. But now you're going to see them, because look how they're reacting to this racial justice, what we call racial justice. Okay, we're going to call it that, because any opposition to it, we can then label as white supremacist. And look at them, they're all coming out of the woodwork now. That you're not just concerned citizens who are acting in a democratic society. Oh, no, you can't have agency. You must be this, and that's the proof. And they're just waiting for that to happen, I think. So people have got to tread carefully, though, as well, because with this corrupt mainstream media, some well-meaning people might come along and think, look, that's offensive. That's a symbol of racial division, violence, insurgency. We don't want it in our city. The moment they touch it, you just wait till the BBC and the Channel 4 going hysterical. So people have got to be careful. It's got to be stopped. You're right. Somehow it's got to be stopped. It's got to be political. But do you trust a political solution in this current environment? I don't.
Well, I mean, as Tosca says here on the stream, I've brought up her comment. It should be done already, but government, and this is where I think, guys, it is a responsibility of government to step up and tackle these issues. But Jed, I put it to you, I see no evidence that government's prepared to do this.
No, you're absolutely right, David. And again, I think one of the very first streams I came on, we discussed law and order, and that's what we need. We need government, whether it's local government, whether it's national government. We need law and order. This is an illegal act. It was an illegal act pulling it down. It's an illegal act that this new statue has gone up. And I agree with David's point. I still think this is part of social conditioning, because if we leave this statue up, we've conditioned it, and we have, as you said, we've set precedents. If we set precedents there, then wherever the other statues have been pulled down so far, they'll stick one up there. And you're right, we're then social conditioned that if you object against this statue, then you're objecting against that community, and therefore we've proved you right. You are the white supremacist, and therefore it is a racist country. I fully agree, but it's all about conditioning, because it's the language that they use on the left. Black Lives Matter. Well, who could argue with that sentiment? Well, yes, of course they do. But, so do all other lives.
Yeah, but this then, sort of maybe to wrap up with, but this is surely this is the point. These are Marxist tautologies. Black Lives Matter. Of course they do. Hope, not hate. Well, we all want to hope, not hate. This is the language of these people. These are people who are marinated in Marxist, indoctrination, and they know exactly what they're doing, and they're smart, and they're clever, and basically they keep pushing until they come up against something very hard, and then they'll run a million miles from it. But so far, I don't see this Johnson government providing any such evidence of that, and even in London about a month ago, we saw the Black Lives Matters protest. The police were getting on their knees. They were taking a knee to Black Lives Matters. And then when some of the guys came to defend the statues, they were getting thought silly. So it's like really perverse in terms of how government's dealing with these situations, isn't it? David?
Yeah. I agree with you. I don't see any hope. I've got no hope in the government because, like I've said before, I don't think this government is conservative, and I don't think they have any affinity with the voter base anymore. I think that this is now a left behind, ordinary people, sensible people, whether they vote Labour or Tory or whoever they vote for. I think there's still a core sensible, ordinary people who are horrified by this and by these. This is a deliberately provocative act to put that statue up. Okay, the original statue of Edward Colston, people didn't know any better, you could say. Okay, but this one is, and there was no provocation in putting a statue of Edward Colston up in the 17th century and the 18th century. He was a benefactor. It wasn't a deliberate act of provocation. It may have been wrong in our time, but this, putting that lady's statue, is a deliberate act of provocation, and that's to deliberately provocate what I would call the ordinary, sensible majority, which is what I call myself.
Well, I mean,
not left or right, but just ordinary people, and that's what I think they're trying to do. I think they're trying to deliberately provocate that base, who they know are probably, as in the demographics of this country, are probably largely white, probably about 80%, like 85%, probably largely white. And I think it's an attack on them. And I think these deliberately provocative acts are being planned. And I think we ought to be very careful. And it's being planned with Channel 4, as this one was. The next one could be in conjunction with the BBC. And we have to be very careful about this.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. I think, in fact, actually, not just before 7 o'clock, I happened to catch ITV. I don't know if either of you have seen. ITV are running this Black Lives Matter ad. Have you seen it, Jed?
I saw your tweet. I didn't get a chance to fully read it though. But
basically, but just after the sort of 6:30 to 7 p.m. regional news, just before Emmerdale, just before the big moment in the ITV schedule, the sun in the sky. They put on a 2-minute voice piece about why being black is so critical, the contribution of black people to this country, the importance of accepting, tolerating, all of the rest of it. A celebration of blackness, which to me is, I don't have a problem with that in one way, but can we have a celebration of whiteness? Can we have a celebration of Asianness? Can we have a celebration of brownness? Why is it, and of course the answer is no to any of that, because the channel, just like Channel 4, ITV, BBC, these are all fundamentally toxic, all these media, and they're fanning the flames of what I see as a potential race war, as another way to divide us. And you guys have both made the same point that we want to see as many of us united as possible. But fundamentally, the political class and the media class are all about splitting us up into 100 different atoms. And it's sad to see, isn't it?
Yeah. It is, David. And this has been a progression of 30, 40 years through every single institution we have, whether it's local government, universities, schools, regional government, national government. So they are against us because they've all had that indoctrination, which I put together in one nutshell as common purpose, whether it's a diversity and inclusion course or whatever it might, a mindfulness course, it's all the common purpose tree of courses to indoctrinate you. And this is why they don't see that the government elements don't see why people like us have an issue with it. We have an issue with it because we haven't gone through this training and we still have our common sense and our values and our dignity.
Well, I think, Jed, the best way to maintain your common sense and your dignity is to avoid the mainstream media like the Plague, BBC, Channel 4, ITV, Sky, as particular egregious examples here in the UK. There's loads across the other side of the water as well, of course.
The thing is, but David, the thing is though, is that so many people, the over 60s, are so reliant on the patterns of TV consumption are changing, but unfortunately, the over 60s are still watching mainstream media. But not only that, worse than that, in my opinion, is the fact that political class. It's the political class that do their Sky TV interviews, that go on BBC breakfast time. That political class. It's quite political media class. It's quite small, but it's got a massive amount of power. But that is the class that actually pays attention and validates those programs. Because the rest of us, as we know, massive against the BBC, and I know Sky TV and Kay Burley and Adam Bolton get loads of stick on social media. We're abandoning them, but unfortunately, who's sticking with them? That 3%, the Orwell's inner party. They're sticking with them because they know that they represent their interests 100%. So we're never going to break this, because it doesn't matter whether we all abandon it. When you've got that 3% still watching it and it's on MPs get free BBC TV licenses, I think. As long as they take it seriously, they validate it, and that's the real issue, I think.
Yeah,
for the media, the fact that it's validated by that very tiny sector of society, the movers and shakers.
I'm pleased to say, just as we finished, Linda is 64 and she's not into the MSN, and I'm sure there's lots of, I think more and more people are moving away from it, and certainly it's the right thing to do. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to move away from this now, because I've got to be somewhere else, folks, and that's why I have to cut this one short a little bit. But can I express my thanks to David in particular, and Jed for being with us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks, for all your comments. They're all good. Only one troll tonight, so we done quite well on that one. And in the meantime, take our advice. Avoid the mainstream media like a plague, and you find other sources. I was going to say Twitter and Facebook and whatnot, YouTube, but they're a bit dodgy. Try Parler.
The truth is out there. The truth is out there.
Oh, it is, Jed. It's just that we avoid the lies en route to discovering it. But listen, thank you guys all very much, and catch up with you again, folks, on Friday evening, 8 p.m. Make it a date. Catch you then. Bye now.
Bye.
Yeah.